Senator Joseph R. Biden, Jr. speaks about foreign policy in Sub 2 Ballroom at George Mason University on March 4, 1987.
As President of the Pre-Law Association and representing the sponsoring student organizations and departments of George Mason University, I would like to welcome all of you to this important event in which we are about to listen to a very special member of the United States Senate, Senator Joseph Biden of the state of Delaware. After the Senator's speech on American foreign policy, there will be a question and answer session. Immediately following the question and answer period, the International Coffee Hour will hold a reception. For those of you who don't know, the International Coffee Hour is a weekly event which takes place on Wednesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. I should mention at this time that all the views that will be expressed this afternoon do not necessarily reflect the opinions of George Mason University and its student organizations. And now, Jeff Dion, Vice President of the Young Democrats, will introduce our distinguished guest. Thank you very much.
First off, I'd like to tell all of you that right now that this is an afternoon that I'm sure you will not soon forget. We're quite fortunate to have as our guest today a man who is not only an expert on foreign policy, but an outstanding orator as well. And let no one here ever again ask the question, who is Joe Biden? Joseph R. Biden, Jr. is a graduate of the University of Delaware and the Syracuse University College of Law. In 1972, after serving for 2 years as a member of the Newcastle County, Delaware Council, he was, at the age of 29, elected to the United States Senate, defeating J. Caleb Boggs, a man who had served 5 terms in Congress, 2 terms as governor, and 2 terms as senator. Joe Biden won that election with a campaign staff that included thousands of high school and college students. Those volunteers believed, as Joe Biden does, that the time has come for a new generation to take hold of the reins of government. Joe Biden is one of the leaders of that new generation, and it is most appropriate that he's visiting this campus. What's happening at George Mason ties in well with the new approaches and creative ideas of that new generation thinking. Considered a leading authority on foreign affairs by his colleagues, Senator Biden is the second-ranking member of the Foreign Relations Committee. He is a strong advocate of arms control efforts and is usually in the forefront of debates on such areas as aid to the Contras, the Strategic Defense Initiative, and the Middle East. Senator Biden has a long history of support for civil rights. He has used his position on the Foreign Relations Committee to oppose the racial injustice of apartheid. Millions of Americans sat in front of their televisions in rapt attention last summer as they watched Senator Biden vociferously criticize the Reagan administration's policies toward South Africa and fight for economic sanctions against the Pretoria government. Once again, he showed his commitment to a more egalitarian society. The senator is chairman of the Judiciary Committee and chairman of the Senate Democratic Task Force on Crime. He was chief architect of the Comprehensive Crime Control Act of 1984, as well as a major anti-drug abuse bill passed in the fall of 1986. This is the kind of strong progressive leadership which has caused Joe Biden's name to be mentioned so often when Americans ask themselves what kind of leader they'll be looking for in 1988. Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal put this country back on its feet. John Kennedy's New Frontier inspired us to explore new areas of science and space. Let Joe Biden's new generation remind us all that despite our vast array of wealth and technology, we can do better. We must move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Joseph R. Biden.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I learned a long time ago there's several things a public speaker should not do. One is keep his audience waiting. 2, to stand between his audience and a meal. And 3 is follow a young man or woman who is a better orator. I think I have just violated all 3 rules. And I'd like to begin by complimenting Jeff, who obviously has no interest in politics, for that very gracious introduction, and by thanking all of you for waiting this long. When I was an undergraduate in graduate school, which seems like a century ago to most of you, I was last on a college campus as a student in 1968, there was a rule. You had to only wait 10 minutes for an associate professor, 20 minutes for a full professor, and not any longer for anybody. And I have now trespassed on that rule by at least 10 minutes. I was 30 minutes late. I apologize. I will not bore you with the reason why I'm late, except to thank you for waiting and to compliment you all on your good judgment to wait as long as you have.